So some of the beliefs that can come up, and this is the bridge into what happens in the here and now, which we're going to get to next, but some of the really common beliefs or blocking beliefs that can happen. And for those of you who are newer to the video cast, we've done a whole, oh, that's a comment. I was making sure it wasn't someone wanting to come in. Blocking beliefs are those belief systems that really kind of get in the way of you being able to show up in your life the way that you want to. And we did a whole video cast on those. So if you're curious about that,
We should do more.
Those.
Yeah, because I think it's really helpful.
So some common blocking beliefs that happen around medical trauma. I think the most powerful one that can really stop us in our tracks is this belief, I'm going to die. And, for those of us who use EMDR, both Dr. Julie and I use that as a form of therapy. I'm going to die is one of the most powerful blocking beliefs that can just stop people and can really prevent them from being able to move forward in their life the way they want to. And if you think back to those earlier life experiences around your medical, care and healthcare, did you have experiences where you remember feeling that way or thinking that, even if it was quote unquote irrational, if that's what your child's self's perception of the experience was, that can be very, very traumatizing if it doesn't get metabolized and processed through. And so that blocking belief can show up in the here and now as an adult, feeling like if you just go to the doctor's office, you could be delivered some life-threatening diagnosis. And so it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. And you'll see the residue of that blocking belief kind of stop you in your adult life today.
Yeah. So another blocking belief, and this is going to seem like it's a little bit of a repeat of when we talked about just the emotions, but it is in fact a blocking belief. And it's a pretty big one, just like what you just said. And that is, something terrible is going to happen. Okay. And people will oftentimes misunderstand this as a premonition. So a lot of times, especially if someone struggles with depression, they'll be like, it doesn't matter, like something bad is going to happen. There's just this dread, I just know it. But if we really explore it, and if it is connected to some sort of big T or little t trauma, there might have been an experience where something unexpectedly happened that actually was bad, and it got registered in a very many times young psyche, okay, that when you least expect it, or you can never control when something bad is going to happen. So you walk around with this gut feeling like, in my life something really bad is going to happen, and you take that as fact. Okay. And sometimes it can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
So this is when I work with this with clients, we look at it again as like a compass. We're not going to take it as fact. We're going to take it as we need to look in that direction and understand it, because maybe something did happen that caught you off guard, that felt that way again to a young psyche, and it got internalized. And so when we resolve it and we understand how that connection got made, then it frees you from walking around with this belief system that is just really thwarting for you.
Yeah. And I think when something bad happens as a kid and it doesn't get properly processed with the support and help of a loving, compassionate adult, we can feel like we can't handle it. So that can be another blocking belief. That's like a sister belief with that one. Something bad is going to happen and I won't be able to handle it. So then it can become this paralyzing fear, this panic that you can end up living with a lot of the time, especially when you think about going to the doctor or doing anything to support your physical health, your medical care, because that earlier life experience was so overwhelming and you really couldn't handle it then because you were a younger person without all of these resources. So by metabolizing that past experience and the shock of it and the overwhelm of it and the fear and all the emotional residue, you're able to look at it with adult eyes that you have now And then you're able to look into your life today and say, you know what, bad things might happen. Well, in fact, they will happen because that is life. Hard things do happen. But the piece here is I'll be able to get through it. I'll figure it out. I can handle it. I've got my resources. I will be okay. And that's the healing in learning how to, effectively manage tough things that show up in life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've got one other.
Yeah, I've got another one too.
Okay.
You go first.
So another one, and I think that this is a big one, especially for our population, and that is a blocking belief that gets created, that gets taken in as, I can't trust my body. Okay. So if something happened within your body that feels out of control, kind of like I had talked earlier about like an appendicitis with a little kid, but it can feel like, instead of like, okay, this is part of a body, sometimes things happen and your body responds a certain way. Most of the time it really is trying to compensate and or heal or get to a point of homeostasis. But it feels like my body is betraying me. Okay, so something's going on in my body that's causing pain, or isn't the way that it you want it to be, or maybe, God forbid, some disease. And then all of a sudden it becomes that my body is this mistrusted entity. All right, and then you walk around, you carry that forward into your life. I can't trust my body. My body, if I allow it to just kind of be on its own, it will end up harming me. Okay. And how many times does that happen? That sometimes will intersect with diet culture and, binge eating and all that kind of stuff that happens, that then creates this huge blocking belief of, I can't trust my body. And to me, our body is one of our greatest allies. I mean, our body is not only what we walk around with and what houses our soul, but it is what physically allows us to go forward in life and to do everything that we experience and enjoy in life. It also is this incredible, in my opinion, miracle that really does work all the time to support itself and to heal itself very naturally. And most of the time we get in its way. So that might be a blocking belief that, again, you can look at, where did that get created? And if there was some early illness that, did come out of the blue, that kind of seemed to be able to process that through and to understand that, so that it does not become this thing where, hey, something that's such an integrated part of who I am, I distrust, which is a real shame. And it's so counter to things like intuitive eating,
That's right, where we have to trust and we have to respect.
Yeah, our body signals.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think how we see that show up in the here and now is you're less inclined to care for yourself and your body in all of the different ways that it needs. And you end up neglecting it, detaching from it, ignoring it.
Yeah. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Look, my body fell apart because I didn't take care of it. And then it's like, see, I can't trust it. Look at what has happened.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the analogy of a car, you do have to take care of it. You have to get the oil changed and put gas in it and take it to the car wash and do all of those things. And if you don't, it's inevitably not going to work very well. And it's really not fair to then say, well, I didn't take care of it, but see, it's not working well. So
I'm thinking when I was a graduate student and I had this silver Honda Prelude that I loved.
Sports car, huh?
Always. You know me better than that. And of course, like, I didn't put oil in it properly. And at one point it ran out of oil and it's like the whole engine just completely like died. And there went my silver Prelude. And I learned my lesson, and I took care of the body of the car ever since, and I could, curse out the Honda Prelude, or I could say, lesson learned, right? I need to do proper maintenance.
Well, and to bring the compassion into the story, were you taught how to take care of it and to put oil into it.
That's right. And I was
So,
all of, I don't know, like 22 years old, and I was very busy with graduate
see,
school.
so you weren't taught. So we don't want to shame spiral
Right.
into what's wrong with me.
Right.
I should know this.
Yeah.
Why can't I do this?
Yeah.
It's probably because you weren't taught. It's probably
Right.
because there are these blocking beliefs and these traumatic experiences that are getting in the way. So I just want to catch the shame
Yep, yep, yep,
spiral
yep,
for
yep.
anybody who's starting to go there.
And then, because a lot of times people will say, but I should have known better. And I said,
Yes.
you know what? Life is a really hard teacher. Okay. And the only thing that we can do is we can learn our lesson, and then we can bring it forward. Okay. So that's going to be a post that that I have set to write too. So, yeah. So anyways, it is what it is. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing.
Yeah, so I have one other important blocking belief that I think is really common to these types of experiences, and that is I don't have a say or I don't have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so often when we're younger and
really
we do have medical experiences happen either to our own bodies or to others' bodies, you know, kind of what you were saying about like, I don't have control. You know, there's this sense of I can't speak up and stop it. It's going to happen no matter what. And, you know, for a lot of kids, like these experiences do happen. And I think we mentioned this in the part one, you know, where there are times where kids like have accidents that happen and they do need to get some care, and they, you know, it just like something hurtful or yucky has to happen for them to get better. And they can scream no and stop and all that, but like we have to do it. I mean, I can think of like my daughter got her ears pierced and it got all infected and we had to go to urgent care, and like they had to surgically remove the back of the earring out of her earlobe. It was horrible, but you know, she's screaming, she wants us to stop and all of that, but like we had to get it out. There was just no good way out of this. And you know, we did a ton of processing after, so it got metabolized. But there are a lot of experiences that people have where, especially as a kid, you're interacting with a doctor, a medical provider, and or a caregiver, and your body is being, you know, something's being done to it, and it is in your best interest, and you don't want it. It hurts, you don't understand it, it's scary. So I think that's another blocking belief that can get stuck in your nervous system and show up in your adult life, where here you are, an adult sitting across from a doctor or a surgeon, and maybe they're recommending something. Maybe they're saying, take this supplement, or you should do this surgery or get this treatment. And you don't want to, but you stall out within yourself, and you don't feel like you can speak up and say that makes me uncomfortable, or I have questions, or I don't want to do that, or what are my options? And you end up silencing yourself and maybe going along with something and really forcing yourself through something that's very uncomfortable. And in a lot of ways, that can be re-traumatizing to your psyche all over again, and just kind of keep that wound open, that emotional wound.
Yeah. So I've got one last scenario, and I don't know if this really goes into blocking belief. I guess it technically could, but it feels actually even bigger than it. It's kind of is like a schema or like a narrative, right? Which can be related to a blocking belief.
Sure.
But I'm thinking about those situations when someone is born, you know, with a certain condition, and there's lots of different ways that narrative or that schema can be created. Sometimes what I hear with my clients is, you know, there's something about me that this was just destined to happen. Okay. So somewhere it becomes interwoven with this self-belief system that says, I'm deserving of this. This was just kind of meant to happen to me because I'm not worthy or whatever, which is just so horrifically devastating, right? And disheartening. So I would be curious if anyone has that kind of a schema that gets woven into some sort of physicality that has happened. And a lot of this becomes, you know, how it gets explained to people, kind of the response to whatever that condition is as you're growing up. But if it is something where then it has become like, this is just what I deserve, I think that
Right.
that's something that absolutely
Mhm.
needs to be worked through, because then again, that becomes
Mhm.
this self-fulfilling prophecy. And when I'm using the word self-fulfilling prophecy, I don't mean that it's like this conscious kind of self-sabotage. I mean that if you lead with that thought process, it usually ends up that you not created purposefully, but your belief system, the choices that you make, how you see things,
Mhm.
kind of end up just manifesting
Yeah.
or actualizing that kind of a belief system.
I think it becomes like a filter that
And that's a good way to look
you
at it.
see all of these experiences through,
Yeah, yeah,
and so you make meaning around
yeah,
this belief. This is my lot in life, or
yeah,
this is my destiny. I'm
yeah,
not worthy of
yeah.
different or better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And two people can see it two very different
Yeah.
ways, you know. So one
Mhm.
person can see it through this one, what I'm going to call like a distortion, because I never
Yeah.
believe that anybody is deserving of anything that befalls them, So, yeah. So watch out for that,
Yeah.
because, if you see life through that filter, whether it is your reality because it's really happening that way,
Mhm.
or whether you are just perceiving it, it becomes the way that you experience life.
Sure.
So it needs to be able to be worked through, so
Yeah.
that conversely, it can be that positive. Like, something bad can happen, and bad things
Mhm.
do happen in
Mhm.
life. But if you see it through this other kind of a filter,
Mhm.
this is part of life. Let me see what I can do to
Mhm.
kind of work through it. I'm really fortunate it wasn't worse like this. You have a different reality by the way
Right.
that you're perceiving it.
Yeah, it makes me think of what Brene Brown talks about of common humanity. I think I bring
Mm,
this up a lot because it's so
mhm,
important, right? Our filter or our lens can be everyone goes through, different and difficult things in life, and they're all different, but they're very challenging in their own right. Or we can have this belief of like everyone else has, it's so much easier, and then I have this, horrible life or this
mhm,
lot in life, and why me? And connecting up with that sense of common humanity that life is hard in a lot of different ways, and this isn't any indication of your worth or your value.
mhm,
And finding that resilience to be able to live in spite of and overcome and be that strong survivor is huge.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.